Hi everyone, my name's Joe Mitchell. If you landed on this video, you likely have an interest in the history of Oley Township, or maybe the history of your home. That is why I wrote and published this 199-page, 8.5 by 11 paperback in 2024. The book details the history of more than 90 original land tracts and 150 homes, including every home that was built before 1820. The research includes nearly 700 surnames and 2,000 heads of household. The information in this book is from primary sources such as deeds, maps, wills, and newspapers. Each fact, and there are more than 2,200 facts in this book, is meticulously referenced at the bottom of each page. My friend and colleague, George M. Miser IX, graciously wrote the foreword for this book. He also provided many of the pictures in this book that came from his personal collection. I thank him for his support and his encouragement. So let's get started. Sit back and relax while I provide an overview of the history of Oley Township. Let's start with the Oley Valley. The name Oley comes from the Lenni Lenape Indians who thought it looked like a kettle, so they called it Olink. John Kine was the first to settle in the Oley Valley in 1706. He built his home in the northeast section of the valley, which is present-day Pike Township. Three years later, John Leday, Isaac DeTurt, and John Frederick Foles were the first to settle in present-day Oley Township. The population in the valley grew quickly, and a petition for the formation of a township called Oley was granted around 1725. The year the township was formed is confirmed in a document that requests a survey to determine the boundary of the township. This is an excerpt from the request written in June 1740. The inhabitants of Oley Township, setting forth that they had petitioned this court about 15 years past for a township, which was granted by the name of Oley, but the bounds thereof were never as yet ascertained. This document leaves little doubt that Oley Township was established around 1725. On September 1st, 1740, the boundary of Oley Township was laid out. The metes and bounds of the township are recorded on the right side of this page, and the first survey of the township is seen on the left. The key to navigating this book is the warranty map on page 2. To find the history of any home, take note of the tract number where the home of interest stands. Look for the tract number in the table of contents, then go to the page listed for the address of the home. You can also look for a specific name in the table of contents, or search for this name in the index section. Let's look at an example like the Leday history listed on page 83. You can see in the photo that Leday was associated with 3 tracts. Let's walk through the history of these tracts. We will start with tract 50, where John Leday settled in 1709. He was a member of the Radical Newborn sect and fled religious persecution in Germany. He likely built a log home that stood at 564 Old State Road. Leday lived with his 2 daughters. Anna Rosa was single, and her sister, Maria, was married to Philip Colwine. Maria and Philip also had a 9-year-old daughter named Dan. In 1711, Anna Rosa married John Yoder and moved to tract 27. John Leday divided and sold his property in 1714. He sold the northern 220 acres to his son-in-law, Philip Colwine. That same year, he sold the southern 100 acres to newborn sect leader Matthias Baumann. He likely built a home that stood at 3098 Friedensburg Road. Let's take a closer look at the history of this home. Matthias Baumann likely built his home just yards from the sacred oak. When he died in 1727, the property was inherited by his daughter, Sarah, who was married to Samuel Hoke. The estate passed through several generations of the Hoke family. The log home built by Matthias Baumann was replaced in the mid-19th century with the home that stands here today. Now we'll look at the history of the northern section of Tract 50. Philip and Maria Colwine moved from the home at 564 Old State Road in 1724 when they built a home at 660 Old State Road. Peter Bertollet documented the existence of this home in 1858. His notes, published in Fragments of the Past, included this drawing of the inscription carved into the door sill. These are the initials of Philip and Maria Colwine. Now that Philip and Maria moved into their new home, John Lede lived alone at 564 Old State Road. Philip Colwine bought Tract 52 in 1733. His daughter, Anne, was likely married to Conrad Reiff that same year. They had their first child in 1734. The two homes on Tract 50 were occupied, so we can speculate that Colwine bought this tract for his daughter to build a home. Conrad and Anne Reiff built a log home around 1734 that still stands at 495 Old State Road. Philip Colwine bought Tract 52 in 1736 and died that same year. His son-in-law, Conrad Reiff, inherited his 900-acre estate and all three homes. Conrad and Anne had two boys, Philip and Daniel, and the family lived at 495 Old State Road. We can speculate that Philip Colwine's wife, Maria, did not want to live alone after her husband died. She likely moved to 495 Old State Road, where she lived with her family. After John Lede died in 1738, the homes at 564 and 660 Old State Road were left vacant. Conrad Reiff likely rented these homes to tenant farmers until his sons came of age. Daniel Reiff moved into the home at 564 Old State Road around 1760. It's possible that Philip Reiff moved into the home at 660 Old State Road around the same time. Philip Reiff inherited Tract 51 from his grandfather's estate in 1773. The path of Main Street, established around 1750, ran right down the middle of the tract. Philip Reiff built a home on Tract 51 at 6 Cricket Slope in the early 1770s. Philip Reiff and his wife lived in their new home. His brother Daniel and his family lived at 564 Old State Road. We learn from Fragments of the Past that the home at 660 Old State Road was rented. Conrad and Anne Reiff still lived at 495 Old State Road. Conrad and Anne Reiff died in 1777. Their 45-year-old son, Daniel, suddenly died in 1782. This meant his 18-year-old son, Conrad Reiff, inherited the estate. The death of his father at a young age likely had a profound effect on Conrad Reiff. In 1814, at the age of 50, Conrad Reiff wrote his will. He left the home at 495 Old State Road to his son Jacob. However, Jacob had to build a new stone house on the property that he would pay for. Conrad wanted to make sure his wife had sufficient accommodations after his death. The home was built in 1815 and still stands today. The recent history of these four homes is detailed in the book, but I will end this presentation with a summary. The home at 495 Old State Road passed through several more generations of the Reiff family before being sold in 1941. In 1784, Philip Reiff sold the 6 Cricket Slope home to his daughter, Sarah, and her husband, John Bonsler. They sold the home to someone outside the family in 1806. Daniel Reiff inherited the home at 564 Old State Road. He razed the building in 1867 and replaced it with the home that stands here today. In 1872, he sold the home to someone outside the family. The home and gristmill at 660 Old State Road were part of that same property, so it shares the same early history. I hope you enjoyed this short presentation that previews the history of Oley Township. If you would like to learn more, please visit my website at www.bhr1752.com.